Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in. My name is Vivek. I'm the VP of Product at Indusface. And today we are going to talk about an interesting topic around bots. Bots are essentially autonomous codes which is written to do repetitive tasks. The reason why it becomes interesting is that bots can be employed for both good purposes and bad purposes. So it comes down to the intent of the users. So as part of today's webinar, we'll be talking about what are bots, what are the challenges around bots when it comes to security, what are the trends that we are seeing in the industry, what are the various type of attacks that can be launched using bots, and then we'll also be seeing around how AppTrana as a solution will help you protect against these bots. With that, let's get started. Before we go into the crux of this webinar, I want to give you a quick introduction about Indusface. Indusface is a cybersecurity company. We are in the business of protecting web applications and APIs. Our product, AppTrana, plays in the web space, web application and API protection space. And we are very proud that we have been chosen as the Gartner's customer choice in Gartner's Peer Insight report 2 years in running. We have been also given 100% recommendation rating by our customers for 3 years in a row, in the same reports. As part of this report, our customers have been asked to rate us across various segments, starting from the overall experience, support, the deployment, and in all these segments, we have been rated very highly when you compare it against our vendors, our peers in this space. So these are our customers. We have customers from all over the world. We have about 5,000 plus customers currently from 90 plus countries, and we are growing very fast. With that quick introduction, let's go into the crux of today's webinar. So bots, right? So what are the problems around bots? As I said before, and as a starting, bots are essentially autonomous code written to do some repetitive tasks, right? And now these bots can be used for both good and bad purposes. So bots like your crawler, a Google crawler, right? Which essentially crawls your applications, which is used for improving your SEO rankings and the likes. Now these are good bots. But the same bots can be also used for malicious purposes, could be used for launching various attacks, could be used to again crawl but get sensitive information. I'll be more talking about how these bots are used for malicious purposes further in the slides. So these are how bots are used, right? And now the biggest challenges when it comes around bots from the security perspective is that first bots can impersonate, right? So when I say bots can impersonate, what I mean by that is a malicious bot can pretend like a good bot, right? It could pretend like a Google crawler and eventually mimic those behaviors, which becomes a challenge for security vendors to now determine those and then block those. The other big challenges around the bot ecosystem is botnets, right? So what botnet essentially is that it is essentially targeted attackers. They eventually use various malwares or other vulnerabilities that are there in our system, and then they eventually get control of various systems across the world, and then use those systems to launch a series of attacks. Even very recently, about early this year, a huge botnet attacks were launched on a gaming industry. It was around, I think the bots were called as dark forcenet bots, and it was essentially a targeted malware which was created using existing malwares like Mira and those things. And it kind of exploited the vulnerabilities that were there in Hadoop systems and did an RC exploit and got hold of various servers all over the world, and then launched a serious DDoS attacks on the gaming industry, causing havoc. So that's kind of how the botnets work. And again, it's that's again a problem statement that has to be looked into when we are looking at bots. The other thing that has to be looked at is that the bots are becoming very sophisticated nowadays, and it is becoming it is able to mimic human behaviors, right? So again, why this is a challenge from the security perspective is that now it becomes a bigger challenge to identify whether it's a bot or human, because it is able to mimic the human traffic and then is able to bypass the existing systems that are there to protect against those bots, right? And in line with that, these bots are now also becoming very sophisticated, that they evolve dynamically with the ML models and those things. They are able to see how the bot mitigation systems are working, and they are able to dynamically evolve uh, and creating abilities to bypass the mitigation systems that are in place. So these are the challenges that we see when it comes to bad bots and protecting against these bad bots. So all these things are culminating into serious problem when we look at it from the industry perspective. Recent surveys around this shows that nearly 40 to 50% of the traffic, total internet traffic, is because of bots. Now, these could be bad bots or good bots, but majority of this traffic remains to be bad bots. And what this eventually means that nearly 77% of the organization have said that they have been subjected to some kind of bot attacks, and it has resulted in serious revenue loss, some reporting up to 6% of revenue loss due to these bot attacks. And the worst part about this is even with such a magnitude, such an increase of bots, for various organizations which were surveyed, only 30% of the organizations are confident that whatever bot mitigation system they have has the ability to block against the various type of bot attacks that are seen in the industry. So that's the biggest problem that everyone is grappling around when it comes to bots. And this is not something that we are just relying on the industry surveys and everything. This is also something that we are seeing in our system across the thousands of applications that we are protecting. The State of Application Security Report is a report that we publish every quarter, which looks at the trends of various attacks that we are seeing across the applications. What are the various trends of attacks that we are seeing? And according to this, in the last quarter, what we have seen is there has been a nearly 50% increase in the bot attacks quarter on quarter. And nearly 90% of the applications that we are protecting has seen some form of bot attacks. And in total, we have seen about 88 million bot attacks in the last quarter alone. So that's the trend that we are also seeing in our application and across the applications that we are protecting. So before we go into go further in the webinar, I just want to ask you a quick poll question. So according to you, what is the biggest challenges that you're seeing because of bots? The poll has now started. We'll be closing the poll in another 10 seconds. Close the polls and publish this, please. Great. So I think majority of the people have been saying that it is because of service disruption, which is true, right? Because I mean, as I talked about how these botnets are used, these botnets are eventually used to launch a series of DDoS attacks and then eventually bring down the system. But apart from that, bots also causes financial risks and reputation risks too. So, yeah. Moving on. Now let's talk about what are the various type of attacks that can be launched through bots. So we have talked about the security challenges that bots causes, and now let's see the various type of attacks that's being launched, which are significant and which causes grave concern to our customers. One such attack is account takeover. Here it is essentially trying to get hold of some account, right, and then use that privilege to get sensitive data or cause some business risk. And how this attack is launched is that in the account login pages or even account APIs, there is a brute force attack that is being done, which is eventually to try various combination of these attacks and then see if anything passes through, and then get hold of those attacks. Right, that's one type of attack that is very common, and that is being used by bots. Now, another major problem that we see because of bots is the content scraping, right? So scraping is essentially done using bots. By essentially these bots crawl these websites, but they are crawled to get sensitive informations. So essentially, one of the attacks that we saw in one of the e-commerce sites was that there was various bot attacks that was happening, but these bots were just trying to crawl these applications and get pricing informations of various commodities, right? And these pricing informations and the discount informations would help competition to position against them and cause businesses. So those are some kind of attacks that are commonly used. Similar to account takeover attacks, credential stuffing attacks are also used, which is very similar, but more or less it is here the credential stuffing is that they look at various passwords, stolen passwords that are published over the net. If you go and look at the dark web, there is a lot of passwords that are being leaked through various channels. Using these username and passwords, the bots would keep trying the various combinations and see if we are able to get through it. And if they are able to get through it, then they get access to the online platforms. This is more used during e-commerce sites or online platforms where contents are being paid contents are logged behind a certain login pages, right? So this is something which is very common in those spaces. And then last but not least, again, credit card cracking is another serious attacks that is being launched using bots, where the sensitive data, right, which you are not aware of, like the security code, expiry dates, those are again iterated over a period of time, and then see if any right data can be garnered, and then those are used for transaction purposes. If you look at it in all these spaces, the underlying philosophy comes down to that these bots are used to do repetitive tasks, right? They are try to do the same login pages again and again, crawl various pages, get the same information again and again, use various combination username passwords, you try various combination of credit cards and those things. So it is trying to do this repetition task, which when a human has to do it, he has to do it thousands and millions of times, which is generally not possible. But through autonomous cores, and through bots, it becomes feasible, and that's how these attacks are being launched. This is not, I mean, these are just some of these attacks. There are various other types of attacks that can be launched. I did talk about DDoS attacks. There are various forms of DDoS attacks that can be launched using these. Impersonation attacks are done, and so on and so forth. Again, before going further, one more poll question for you guys. So how confident are you that your existing mitigation systems can block against such attacks that we have talked about so far? We'll close the poll in another 10 seconds. We are closing the poll. Can you publish the results, please? Somewhat confident. That's good here. People who are not sure, and I mean, it's great to see about 20% are very confident. That's great. The people who are not confident or somewhat not confident, and you should probably look at ways in which you can mitigate against this, right? And look at various solutions that is available in the market, understand what are the capabilities available, and then see how you can build your defenses to protect against these bot attacks, because these bot attacks are going to be prominent as we move forward, and it is something that is bound to keep increasing. So one such solution that we have is AppTrana. And for the next part, our next part of the webinar, we'll be talking about how AppTrana helps you protect against such bot attacks. So as part of AppTrana, we have built multiple layers of layers to protect against these bots, right? So we have our sophisticated bot modules, which is an anomaly-based bot detection module, which eventually looks at every traffic. It first tries to classify the traffic into human and bots, and then further based on the various modules, it essentially determines whether if it's a good bot and bad bot. The way we do it is that each of these modules adds various risk scores to these bots, and then the risk scores are kind of adds up, and then based on the behavior patterns of all these bots, the risk scores keeps adding up, and when it reaches a certain threshold, then we'll start taking the mitigation actions. The best part about this is we also give customers controls around this. Customers can tell us whether they are paranoid about bots, whether they are lenient about bots, and based on this, the mitigation actions differ. So I did talk about various types of attacks and multiple layers of attacks that we have. For example, when we talk about account takeover attacks, which is essentially a brute force attacks, what we have given to our customers is a sophisticated behavioral-based DDoS protection policies, where customers can create a very specific policy for critical assets based on the user behavior. What I mean by that is you have your login page, for example. Now this login page, you would know what is the behavior of your user. Typically, a user would not access more than 1 or 2 times to the login page within certain duration of time, right? If you are just using basic rate limits, you will have to put it at a very high level. Now we have given a URI specific rate limits where customers can look at the behavior of the user and then determine at what level that you should start blocking, and then or showing CAPTCHA, and the account takeovers would be blocked very granularly at a URI level. For example, we have a site where this is a demo site that we have, and in this site we have a login page, right? And in this login page, we generally see only 1 request a minute. So we have configured a policy saying that, hey, start blocking at 500%. So which essentially means that if any user tries more than 5 times, right, of various combinations of the password or username password, then it would be immediately be blocked. You could also do various other defense mechanisms here, like providing CAPTCHA or targeting and those things, right? So that's how we provide protection against account takeover attacks. Now there could be other complicated sophisticated bots, which I also talked about. And for these, for protection against these bot attacks, that we have is what we call as a bot protection module. In this bot protection module, we have various modules which would kind of monitor every request that is coming in, right? And as I said, it will keep adding the risk scores based on the behaviors of the bots, and the behaviors could be how the bot is behaving, what are the traffics, the characteristics of the traffic, whether it is coming from data center, whether it is trying to anonymize its IP. All these things are being used to determine whether the bot is malicious or not, and then we block against those malicious attacks. For example, I did talk about bots impersonating as a good bot, right? So I'm just going to now demonstrate quickly about how this thing would work. So we have created a couple of two simple bot scripts, right? This is one bot script, which is essentially a Python script just trying to access the website. Now, if you see this, 1 second. Yeah. So if you see this, give me a minute, sorry. Yeah. So I'm just going to run this script now. So now it is being blocked because we have protection in place to say that the bots or Python scripts should be blocked. Now in this case, this is another Python script. Now in this case, it is mask rendering as a Google bot. Right now it is a Google bot. It is pretending to be a Google bot. Now in this case, if I do, sorry. Okay, I'll just try it here. Give me a minute. So I'm running the same script here, the different script for the same site. Now this site, this script is behaving as a Google bot. So now what you would see is the request has gone through, it is able to crawl the page. The reason why it is working is that in this case, I have disabled the bot pretender module that I have for this site. Now for a different site, I have the bot pretender module enabled, and I'm going to run the same script, right? So, 1 second. So yeah, this is the same script, POC2, and this is the site where the bot pretender has been enabled. So when we do this, because it is going to pretend also, we are able to block it, right? So this is how our bot pretender module works, where based on, now it has been able to determine that, okay, though it is a Python script, but it is saying it is a Google bot, but it is pretending to be a Google bot, but it is not actually a Google bot. For this, we have various other mechanisms behind which will determine whether it is actually Google bot, or it is actually what it is claiming to be, or it is some malicious actor which is pretending. Right. And similarly, there are various modules, there are anomaly behavioral modules and other things which will eventually look at various behaviors, right? And in this case, because it was pretending to be a good bot, it was a clear malicious action. So we would immediately block it. In some other cases, we would see that, okay, there is an anomalous behavior, but it is not enough to immediately block it. So we will continue to increase the risk scores. And eventually, if there are a combination of actions that happen within a certain period of time, then we will mark that identity to be malicious, and we would block them. So that's eventually how our bot protection module works. One of the things that we are proud about is that the tax filing system of our country, where the country is it's a country of 1 billion people, is being protected by our solution, right? And there are a lot of bot attacks that happen, and we eventually, in combination of the various layers of protection that we have, and also custom workflow rules that we have deployed for this application, we are able to block sophisticated attacks that are launched and ensure that everyone, legitimate users, are able to file their taxes. Similar to that, I would also want to talk about a case study which is a very good case study when it comes to bot attacks, right? So the visa appointment systems, which is being used worldwide, right? So they had a unique problem when it comes to bots. So for certain regions, what they used to do was they used to open up tokens, right? And people who wanted to get their visas have to get these appointment tokens, and then use those tokens to go and apply for visa and get the get the visas, right? So that was a system that they had in place. And this system worked in such a way that every quarter they will open up for a certain duration in which people who are interested can go and book these tokens. The biggest challenge that they had as part of this was that when such that window happened and they opened these open for booking these appointments, right? There were bots that were launched which would eventually use dummy data and block these appointments, which eventually means that legitimate users were not able to get the appointments and were not able to apply for visas. So when the day of appointments come, there would be no people coming in because it was all malicious bots which would have done the appointment. So this was a problem statement that the visa appointment system came to us with. And then what we did was we deployed our default bot rules immediately against these, which eventually helped block about 60 to 70% of the attacks. And not only that, after that, we also work closely with our customers, try to understand the behavior of these bots. And we also try to understand the various workflows around the booking system. And then we wrote a targeted workflow-based rule, right? What we mean by workflow-based rule was it had multiple layers there also. Essentially, it was like, okay, after filling the page 1, you have to go to page 2, after that, page 3, right? Now, if a bot directly tries to access page 2 instead of going to page 1, then we would block that. Similarly, the duration between which entity can move from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, right? So we looked at all those things. We looked at and we built various layers around it, creating sophisticated workflow-based rules. Eventually, we were able to block 100% of the attacks, and only legitimate traffic reached the application server, improving the user satisfaction. And eventually, people were able to get the appointments and get the visa process done. So that's a very important use case around bots, and I hope it helps you understand how our system is able to help you protect against such bot attacks. So a quick poll question, based on what I have explained, how many of you will be interested on a demo about our AppTrana portal? Okay, we'll be closing the poll. So as a final slide, I just want to talk about AppTrana. So AppTrana is our web solution, which I have been talking about. And we are the only solution in the market who provide a risk-based web application protection and API protection. So the unique part about us is that we start from discovery. The biggest challenge is what we see what we hear from our customers is that they do not know about the risk posture, right, of their organization. So they are not sure about what are the assets that they have. So we identify the external facing assets that are available for the organization. We show them what are the web assets that are available, what are the mobile assets available, and what are the API assets available. And from there, the protection starts, right? And the first part of that is to identify the risks of the assets that have been identified. So as part of AppTrana, we provide a dash scanner, which essentially helps you identify the various vulnerabilities that are there in the application. So you clearly identify the risk that is there in the application. As the saying goes, any protection is as good as the weakest link. So what we help you do is to identify the weakest link. We look for all the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities and more, and we find the risk posture of the application. We also complement it with pen testing, which eventually helps you identify the business logic vulnerabilities also, and eventually gives you a comprehensive view of what is the risk posture of the application. But identifying the risk is one thing, but protecting is another, right? So we also have a WAF layer, which eventually helps you protect against those risks. The unique part about us is that we provide a unified view around what are the vulnerabilities that are identified and how we are protecting against those, right? And the best part about this is customers who are looking to get all their risks immediately patched, they can immediately identify, hey, what are the vulnerabilities that are protected by the core rule sets that we have, and what can be protected by custom rules. Customers can request for custom rules from our portal, and then we will write the virtual patches for it. And eventually we'll give you an ability to get a clean scan report within few days, right, or a couple of days. So that's the power we provide. And we also give you a clear visibility into what are the vulnerabilities that needs to be fixed in code, because that cannot be patched at WAF layer. So that all you have to do is go and use those things, give those to your development team and get those fixed, where rest of those things are taken care by AppTrana, eventually ensuring that you can go live with your applications without delaying and without being concerned about securities. And the best part about our platform is that all these things is by being backed by our managed service. We ensure that we write the custom rules for you. We ensure that false positives are removed for your application. So we provide a zero false positive guarantee, and we constantly monitor the evolving security space, and we update our rules constantly, ensuring that your application is protected around the clock. We all, as I talked about it, we do provide DDoS and broad protections also. Last but not least, security should not come at the cost of performance. So we have also bundled in CDN within our solutions, so that customers can get best-in-class security without compromising performance. And all these things comes as a single solution in the same platform. With that, we come to the end of this presentation, and now I'm open for questions. Questions? And it need not be just on this webinar. Anything around AppTrana in this space, I will be happy to answer. And I think someone has raised their hand, Vidyashri. I think you are unmuted. You can unmute yourself and ask a question if you have.
Can you hear me, sir?
Sorry?
Vivek sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, sir. My question was like, if someone through web application firewall fingerprint, they are able to detect which firewall is being used, particular customer's environment. Suppose he is using cloud Akamai networks. So in ISR level, how we can reach Indusface AppTrana?
Sorry, I'm not clear with the question.
The question is, they are already using Imperva.
Cloudflare or Akamai networks.
How do we show that Indusface is different?
Okay, yeah. You are saying how do you differentiate us, right? So the major differentiation that comes to is on 2-3 pillars, right? So the first pillar is we are the only guys who start with asset discovery, right, and risk detection. So we first help you identify the risk posture of an application and an organization, and then we go into protection. We don't give a cookie cutter solution where there are default WAF and default rules, and we let the customers to go and handle it, right? That's not how we approach it. We identify the risk poster, we identify what are the vulnerabilities that are there in the application, and then we say how these vulnerabilities are patched by WAF. So this is the first differentiator that we bring to the table. The next differentiator that we bring to the table is that we are the only vendors who can guarantee zero false positive. The reason why we are able to do that is that because of the managed service that we provide. So when an application is onboarded behind us, we onboard it on day zero in block mode, because we have certain rules which we know that will not be causing FPs. And then all the other rules, we monitor it. We monitor the traffic for 14 days. We fine-tune the rules. Our security experts fine-tune the rules, ensuring that there are no false positives. So almost 100% of the applications that are being used remain in block mode. So this is the second USP that we bring to the table. The third USP that we bring to the table is the behavioral-based DDoS and the bot protection that we talked about, right? The part about behavioral-based DDoS is unique to us, where we tell you the behavior of your users. For every end user that is accessing your web application, we trace them, right? We look at what is the trend, what is the maximum number of requests any user is making. So now you can create a formula-based rules, which will eventually be on the behavior. So if your power user is generally sending 100 requests a minute, then you can say at 200% of that start showing a captcha, at 300% of that start targeting and the likes, right? So that's another unique proposition that we bring to the table. So these are the major differentiators that you can use to position yourself against Cloudflare and the likes. For more further information, you should reach out to our sales team and they will help you out further.
Understood.
Can you arrange a demo to present to customer?
Yes, definitely. Again, reach out to our sales team. They will definitely help you out on the demos.
Any other case study of blocking bot attacks? Can you explain other than visa appointments?
There were multiple cases. I mean, there were other attacks. Other case studies that I can remember about is one is for an e-commerce site where there was as I was talking about it briefly, right? There were serious bot attacks happening, which was majorly to do scrapping, right? Just to do scrap those websites, get the pricing informations, get the discounts that is happening, so that the competition can position against them. So again, in these kind of bots, it was more our anomaly-based rules and the behavioral policies that we had in place that started kicking in. We also have modules that will try to differentiate easily between a bot and a this thing, right? So where there is an invisible captures that is being presented to these bots, and if the bots are not able to handle those, then at least it will be easily determined that it is a bot that is accessing instead of human. Then again, immediately the risk score of such identities increases, and then if they do any other malicious behaviors, then it will block. So such combination of defensive mechanisms helped toward those attacks for that e-commerce site. That's another case study that I can remember immediately. But I'm sure there are various other such attacks that we have blocked. But I mean, that's one example that I can remember.
Indusface differentiator with F5 and Imperva. This has already been answered.
Yes, I mean, it's the same differentiators that we talked about. Again, for further details, we have battle cards for these things. You should reach out to a sales team. They'll be able to share it.
Both on-prem and cloud, Only cloud. Okay.
We are only cloud solution. We do not provide any on-premise solution.
Do you use sinkhole the bots communication?
I mean, yeah, I mean, see, it's sinkholing is essentially you are dropping those requests, right? And yes, that is targeting, and we are just, as they make requests, we won't send back responses. That's and various mitigation mechanisms are available. We can do targeting, we can do capture, we can do block, we can do redirections. All these mechanisms are available and can be done.
Saurabh has a question. So unmute yourself and then talk.
Yeah, hello Vivek sir, this is Saurabh here.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, actually I just wanted to discuss something. We are just facing some problem in the organization where we are just go to the DB corruption and the auto file deletions, right? So we have done the lots of antivirus tools like Symantec, Veritas, and the Trailhead, even CrowdStrike, and the many things. But still, we are just facing the same problem. So, have you ever seen this kind of problems or issues? Or could you please guide us in this case?
See, DB corruption and everything, right? It eventually ends up happening because of. I mean, again, I can only give you generic answer at this point.
Yeah, no problem.
But it generally happens because of any exploits that is being done, right? And it is exploits would eventually be because of vulnerabilities that are there in the application, right? So to protect against this, I would suggest that you do a complete risk analysis of your application and your ecosystem. It could be on the vulnerabilities could be there in the application, or it could be that there are some backdoors that are available. And because of this, access has been, and then there are some exploits that is being targeted, right? So if it's at an application level that the vulnerabilities are there, obviously you could try out solutions to identify whether there are any risks that are available in that application, and then we can help you against protecting against those, right? So again, reach out to our sales team. I think they will be able to guide you. I mean, discuss it in more detail, and then guide you exactly that what is the remediation that you can take.
Definitely. Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else? No other questions? Okay, thank you everyone. Thanks for joining in, and please reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Reach out to our sales team also if you want to know more about our product and the demo of the